In 2026, a neuroscientist in Japan, the same guy who literally invented Nintendo's brain age, put people behind the wheel of a manual transmission car and scanned their brains. And the region that lit up wasn't the fun part of the brain. It was the prefrontal cortex, memory, attention, decision-making, the exact part of your brain that starts to fade as you get older, and driving stick, every single day, was keeping it switched on like automatic drivers' brains just weren't. That's not a car guy telling you this. That's a peer-reviewed researcher. And it might finally explain something a lot of genuinely smart, high-functioning people have never been able to explain about themselves, why they'd rather spend their Saturday morning elbow-deep in a carburetor than press a button on a car that basically drives itself. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what's happening in your brain when you fall for a machine older than you are, and why the sharpest person in your friend group is probably the one still riding a 20-year-old motorcycle to work. Here's something wild. For most of history, doctors thought nostalgia was a disease, literally. Soldiers who got homesick were diagnosed with it. It's only in the last 25 years that neuroscience figured out what's actually going on. And it turns out nostalgia isn't a weakness at all. It's your brain's built-in reward system. When something old and familiar hits you, the specific smell of hot engine oil, the exact click of a door latch, the shape of a headlight you haven't seen since you were 9, your hippocampus and amygdala fire together. Memory and emotion at the same time. And that combo triggers a release of dopamine and oxytocin, the same chemicals your brain gives you for bonding with people you love. So when you see a beat-up 70s cafe racer or your uncle's old pickup and feel that weird chest tug you can't fully explain, that's not sentimentality. That's your brain rewarding you chemically for remembering. And here's the part that gets even more interesting. You don't even need to have lived it. Researchers call it borrowed nostalgia. It's why 25-year-olds who never owned a Nissan Skyline still lose their minds over one, because Initial D and 100 racing games built that memory for them anyway. The brain doesn't check whether the memory is real. It just rewards the recall. Quick one for the comments, I want the exact year and model. Not the car you drive now. The first one that did this to you, the one that ruined every normal car for you afterward. Drop it below. I read every single one of these. Now here's where it gets specifically about intelligence, not just emotion. Remember that Japanese study from The Hook. The researcher, Professor Ryuta Kawashima, spent his career studying how the brain stays sharp with age. He's the guy behind Brain Age, the puzzle games that sold something like 20 million copies on the idea that your mind needs exercise like a muscle. And when his team studied manual transmissions specifically, they found something the automatic industry does not want you thinking about too hard. Driving a stick forces your brain to juggle multiple things at once in real time with actual consequences if you get it wrong. Reading road speed, timing the clutch, selecting the right gear by feel, metering the throttle so you don't stall in front of everyone at the light. None of that is automatic. Pun intended. It's constant, active coordination, and that keeps the prefrontal cortex, the exact region responsible for memory and decision-making, working the entire drive. And automatic, by comparison, lets that part of your brain basically clock out. You're just along for the ride. So when a naturally curious, high need for stimulation brain gets put in a car that requires zero thought, it gets bored. And bored brains go looking for something that pushes back. That's not a coincidence. That's why the people who are wired to actually enjoy thinking are often the exact same people who can't stand a car that thinks for them. There's a second piece to this, and it's less about chemistry and more about power. Ask any old car or old bike owner why they keep something that breaks down more than a modern car, and you'll hear some version of the same answer over and over. If it breaks, I can fix it myself. Enthusiast communities call this mechanical honesty, a machine simple enough that a human being can actually understand the whole system, end to end, instead of needing a dealership computer to even tell you what's wrong. That matters more than it sounds like. Newer cars can be remotely disabled, tracked, updated without your permission, sometimes even bricked by a software patch you never approved. Older machines can't do any of that to you. Nobody but you decides whether that engine turns over tomorrow. For a certain kind of mind, the kind that likes understanding how things actually work instead of just trusting that they do, that's not a downside. That's the entire appeal. It's the same reason some of the most notoriously analytical people in tech, the guys who built the industry that replaced everything mechanical with a screen, went home and rode old, dumb, analog motorcycles with zero electronics. Because after a day of software, a carburetor is the one thing left that just makes sense. Real talk in the comments. If you already know what feathering the clutch means without me explaining it, just type it below. No context. I want to see how many of you didn't need the definition. And here's the twist. This isn't some dying old man hobby. It's actually growing in exactly the generation you'd expect to have already replaced it with an app. Cars from the 90s and 2000s, Skylines, old M3s, early 911s are becoming full-blown collector items right now, and it's not boomers buying them. It's millennials and younger buyers who grew up idolizing them through video games instead of car magazines. Vinyl sales are back from the dead for the same psychological reason. Mechanical watches are back. Film cameras are back. Give a generation raised entirely on frictionless, tap-to-work technology one genuine, hands-on, slightly difficult analog object, and something in the brain relaxes that a smartphone never touches. It was never really just about the car. So next time you see someone your age choosing a 20-year-old motorcycle over a brand new one with heated grips and a touchscreen, don't assume they're behind the times. Their brain might just be asking for something modern life stopped giving it. A little friction, a little mastery, a little control. If this actually changed how you look at the old machine sitting in your garage, hit subscribe, because I've got a follow-up video breaking down exactly why the same wiring makes some of us obsessive about vinyl and film cameras too. And seriously, comment your first car or bike. I want to build a list from this comment section of the machines that started it all.